Hello and welcome after an extended hiatus. I like the word hiatus.
Is that your intro?
The hiatus caused by coitus.
Oh
Gosh.
god, keep this podcast on the ice.
Keep it frozen like Sylvester
Yeah.
Stallone. All right, welcome to the AI Business Podcast. We are back after a month of hiatus. How about that, Max? Is your favorite word?
Fucking amazing. What was the hiatus caused by?
Yours truly decided to have a baby in the middle of the pandemic. So, baby was born safely, and thank you for everyone in the hospital. It's somewhere on the west side of Manhattan. Everything went as planned, and the baby is actually very chill. So, which is why I'm actually back to work. There's a good chance he might cry in the background. at some
I'm all
point.
for a new co-host.
Congratulations. Now,
But congrats, and now back to work.
it's
Yeah.
good to have you back. Thank you for being here. And yes, congratulations. Welcome to the world, baby Zealand. It's a horrible, horrible place.
I don't follow people who's traveling now. Like, you're traveling in the pandemic? Get out of here. Oh, here's a baby. Here's a big noggin. I didn't like that photo. That's who I am right now.
You've changed. I don't like it.
I used to post similar photos like Max, just like me in the field with no friends, looking like a serial killer.
It's a pandemic.
But I know I missed a lot of news.
Nothing happened. The world is fine.
And I was told that there was a Guardian story that about something we covered before, GPT-3. Max,
Yes.
you want to break it down for us?
Absolutely, yes. So Guardian did something that people shouldn't really do, and I just like it's done the worst of it, right? A lot of people did the kind of like, oh, GPT is so clever, here it is, like talking like a person would. Oh, I can pass the Turing test, this, that, and the other. But so they wrote the story using GPT-3, edited the bejesus out of it, and it's basically a computer talking about things like how there's no point to destroy humanity and how he's been created to serve. GPT, for people not familiar with it, is a generator of random. It is not capable of producing coherent thought. So, like a bunch of people just said this is very impressive, and a bunch of technical people said, well, this is bollocks, and it has absolutely no value whatsoever, and show us what the engine actually produced rather than the edited version. So,
Yeah.
we generally like the Guardian, bleeding heart liberals that we are, but they made a boo-boo here.
Yeah, I mean, what they did was so you have to give it a prompt, right? But they gave it a very large prompt. They gave it like the whole first paragraph, and then it generated 8 different versions. And then they took the most like normal and concise and well-written aspects of each of the 8 versions, and then edited it into one piece themselves. Which, as someone that has to edit and put up opinion pieces from people in the technical industry, often that's a similar amount of work we have to do for those things. So that's not indicative in any way. And in fact, most of the people sharing it, being like, look how cool this is, are sharing that first paragraph that the humans wrote. So it's just a flawed way of looking at it. People like to get excited about anything, especially things that have like Elon Musk's name attached, as we discussed in the last episode. But GPT-3 is cool. It's just not that cool. Trust good journalism. Don't trust that.
I'm just quickly going to say, also this week, we had British medical journal Nature and Lancet coming together and establishing a consortium to look at AI in scientific reporting. And they've created a set of very, very strict, very scientific guidelines and saying okay, if you got medical research on AI, it has to be bulletproof, and this is how you do it. And unless you do it, we're not going to publish you anymore, because people are afraid that, there's a lot of like belief and faith questions around AI, and the technology is great, but let's be very, very realistic about it. And at least, from the academia, they're looking at it with a sort of like more rational eye and saying like, yeah, the stuff that's happening is not very good.
Yeah, I think the more I read about AI reporting, the more I realize there's a kind of a leap, just like jump from what's realistic into like, hey, let's have a conversation about, machine ruling human, or like, existence, like which we jump right from right. We jump from like what is happening in 2020 to like basically Black Mirror category in no time. I think it makes sense, I guess, for an article, for opinion piece, because it stokes emotions and whatever. But I think what some articles I read, it would just be like clearly clickbait, and it's just so disconnect. Do you think that this is one of the example of just like we just need to kind of, if it's not that fascinating, we can just say, hey, yeah, GPT-3 is still a work in progress.
Yeah, I think it's interesting journalism. There's like out and out clickbait, but there's also, as a writer, you want the thing you're writing to sound interesting and be interesting, and you want to make sure that like you're on the right track. And that can make it very tempting just to hype up the thing and go like, this is a huge thing, because then you feel
Mm,
proud of the work you've done because you're like, oh, I've
right.
written about this huge thing. But that's something you have to fight against, because otherwise everything is the next big thing. Everything is huge, and then when something big does actually come along, no one really pays attention. They just think, oh, I've heard this, I've seen this all before. The reality is most of the stuff that we write about, most of the stuff that like other journalists write about, are small incremental steps.
Right. Yeah, we don't need to jump right into a Terminator conversation like
Mm,
every time. It can just be about, hey, we're just doing this about self-driving car, you know.
mm.
Yeah. And even then, this is actually a fantastic segue. Like there are serious issues with self driving cars. Everybody's working on it, but nobody really knows the timelines. They know timelines for introduction, but they can't make these things drive until governments give them an A-OK. And yes, an interesting project is happening near Michigan.
Do you say Michigan?
I mean,
So not near Michigan, in Michigan, right? So what makes this interesting, right, is uh, the like fun disputed leader of self-driving cars at the moment is Waymo, the Alphabet subsidiary, right? So they've over a decade been pumping billions into this thing. It's got by far the most amount of miles, both physical and virtual. So they're the ones that you'd think probably have the best kind of roadmap of understanding when level 5 autonomous self-driving comes along. Level 5 is when literally you can be on your iPhone, on your VR headset or whatever, and the vehicle's getting you
Yeah.
to where you want to go. And everything was going fine, and then they've kind of started talking to the press saying, it's taking a little longer, it's taking a little longer. And then a different Alphabet subsidiary comes along and says, we're going to build a special road for autonomous cars. The street itself needs to be smart. The street needs to have edge computing all along it, to have sensors,
Right.
to have ways of talking to the cars and saying, hey, it's safe here. Don't allow non-autonomous cars, or at least they might allow connected cars, but they can't have completely black box cars that just travel along without them knowing. And that's just
Right.
them admitting, hey, self-driving is not where we thought it was going to be by the year 2020.
yeah, what I also found interesting, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but these roads will also be there for public transit, for example, and some other sort of like personal mobility things. Like
Yeah.
I'm thinking, who knows? Maybe electric scooters even. So yeah, it's not just self-driving cars. It kind of like this makes sense. They're just kind of freezing out all the non-essential transport out of this road. So like like it's just
Uh-huh.
like delivery trucks and then the like.
I mean, it makes sense on a if this is what the technology allows, this is what we need to do. But from
Yeah.
a perspective of like we're going to have self-driving cars taking over anytime soon, no, because you can't just
Right.
suddenly build tons of roads across all the cities or upgrade all your existing roads. That's a huge cost.
Yeah.
This is a trial one. It looks like Alphabet and the Ontario Teachers Pension Plan are probably going to foot most of the bill. But I dug through all the documents. It still looks like they might make it like a toll road where they take some
Mhm.
kind of
Yeah.
fee, or
Right.
we're not really sure who keeps all that data. Probably Google.
How about a subscription for roads? Huh?
I don't know. No, everything costs enough as it is.
Yeah, I feel like now that we're kind of being more realistic about self-driving car, I think a possibility, let's say I-95, which is a big road, maybe that road is always very busy, a lot of trucks. What if that road is just when you go on, you in 10 years from now you can engage, or maybe 5 years, you engage in a level of self-driving mode, and everybody just, and at least for that road, you enter a place where you don't run into traffic. We took a road trip every other year. My mom would drive from Pennsylvania to Richmond, Virginia, and then there's a way that she can go, and she'll have to pay $30, but that will lead her to a skyway, and there will be no traffic, and she can. It actually takes longer in terms of mileage, but it saves time because there's never traffic. So she would do that, and she would just enjoy the view, and she would drive along the driveway by herself. I can see that, maybe not across a particular city because that's hard enough to do. I
Mm.
remember when Uber was doing that in Pittsburgh 2018 because the roads were so complicated. Imagine Boston. Imagine a city like Boston or New York, right? So I think maybe it's more realistic for them to, hey, they just figure out that let's figure out traffic. Let's figure out this portion. Let's cut um accidents by like just making sure this road is really beefed up with infrastructure. And if we charge, I mean, they're already charging people $15 going to Manhattan, right? So if they charge $20 and you can just sit there and not do anything for 20 minutes, let's say one of the Lincoln Tunnel going to Manhattan, it's self-driving. That's not a bad thing, right?
The Lincoln Tunnel is Jersey to Manhattan, right?
Lincoln is from Jersey to Manhattan, yeah.
It was the worst part of the morning because it's just like, yeah, you're on time and you never know how much time it's going to take. It's just ridiculous.
With traffic, on the way out, I had a baby in the car and it took an hour and a half. And thank the Lord the baby did not make a sound. Because if he had started crying, and I couldn't even see him because the baby's in his car seat in the back. I was driving the car by myself. I never know if that's illegal. I can't see the baby for an hour and a half, and at the cars, it was just everybody's driving so closely. It's unreal. Like the stress of discharging the baby out of the hospital in heavy Holland Tunnel traffic is
This is what I mean about you having changed. You used to have these cool stories about, you know, like trekking and skydiving, and now it's traffic. I mean, the other thing I'm worried about, though, is like, I mean, two things would be like the tiered nature of if you have all these toll roads that only certain people can go on, and then induced demand. Like that, there's, you know, this is this concept that came about. People realized in the '60s where you build more roads, it just means more cars, right? It never actually solves the issue, right?
Right.
And model after model, study after study, city after city has come across this, forgotten about it, built more roads, come across this, built more roads, because, you know, roads are always a very popular political slogan. We don't know how induced demand would really work in when it comes to self-driving. I guess the advantage, if you have these smart roads that are tracking everything, you'd be able to predict things a lot better and go, okay, well, we have this many cars exactly. If we make it bigger, we could have this many cars exactly at this speed. But historically, just building more roads has never worked.
Yeah. Jevons paradox, right? Jevons paradox.
But buses, just build buses, right? Americans, I'm telling you, buses are okay.
Buses
right?
are fine.
Yeah, buses are fine. You guys have an issue with buses and public transport. Public transport is fine. It is lovely. It can be clean. It can be safe.
I think within certain city, like if you're in New York, you're okay. Boston, okay. DC, yeah. LA, no, not at all. San Francisco, not really. You know what I mean? Like the infrastructure is kind of old and dated here, and also having a kid again.
Oh my god,
or boring category. But it just, without a car, you can't go anywhere without stressing yourself over a bus schedule and going in and out of places and taking, which is very different from UK. I've been to UK with my friends who had kids, and they're able to put people on a stroller, and the bus is nice and clean and quiet. A different story here.
Yeah, as someone that's had to travel across California in a Greyhound wearing shorts, it's a different experience.
Yeah, but you found yourself afterwards. Right?
I did, yeah, and other people found me. It was a fun one, but like, I wouldn't do it if I had a baby.
And maybe another feel-good story is our own AI summit in London, which I miss entirely. Fill me in, Max. What do I miss?
Yeah. Well, okay. So it's a virtual event for the first time since the founding of the AI Summit. So everything is different. We're trying new things. I mean, it's an interesting platform. It's an interesting capability. I was manning one of the stages, asking people some questions. I screwed up only once.
You got a new haircut, right?
I got a haircut and everything, dude. I had the shirt. I rearranged my background. So that went very, very well. We also had real announcements at the show, which is not the case all the time. So one of the things that happened is Rolls-Royce. Everybody knows Rolls-Royce, right? It's the plane engine people, not the car people, because car people are now completely different people. Rolls-Royce, the airplane engine people, said they will share their AI ethics framework, which is very, very interesting because you don't think about an industrial organization which makes engines as something that is really dealing with the questions of ethics. So they're going to give it away for free. They developed it. It's in use across 200 products at Rolls-Royce. It's being sort of like introduced across the entire organization. These guys know AI. They've been experimenting with AI and before that, like some of these statistical techniques since the 1980s. They also, like every time people say, oh, the plane engines, this many sensors streaming this many data points to the ground. They are those people. Rolls-Royce are the people who receive those, like millions and millions of data points and have to make sure that their planes are still flying.
I presume they would be the guys that really kind of pushed digital twins back in the day, right? Because making engines is very, very complex, and then testing them in the air is even more complex because you don't want it to put it up there if it's broken. So they create those digital twins, right?
Yeah, exactly. So then they launched a dedicated AI labs in 2017. About a year ago, they launched this AI ethics thing. My guess would be because, like everybody's talking about AI ethics. So if you're interested in AI ethics in manufacturing concept, when you're making industrial equipment, like how do you treat ethics? Where does ethics come into play? Like, do you even need ethics? Which is, again, an interesting question. This is going to be available before the end of the year. We don't know much more, but it's going to be completely open source. So anybody who wants to take a gander will be able to do that. And we're definitely going to revisit the story once it happens.
Were there any other exciting AI summit things?
Well, there was just one. So GlaxoSmithKline, that was another major keynote. They're opening an AI research hub, of course, in London's King's Cross. For our sort of like foreign friends, London's King's Cross is a site of a major redevelopment. It's been gentrified. It's very techy. Google's DeepMind is based there. The Francis Crick Institute is based there. Several pharma companies as well. Several research institutions.
Harry Potter is based there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Those people go in groups, like with their scarves and everything. That is definitely a fixture. GSK is muscling in on this area because, well, it's cool, if nothing else. And another place, another one of their neighbors is the Alan Turing Research Institute, which is, a very interesting institution. So, a major pharma chucking a bunch of money at the famous London location.
The guy you had talking, Dr. Hal Barron. I mean, he was interesting because he talked about the concept of, they're collecting all this genomic data, right? And if you think, the turn of millennium, you had was it £1 million to do one human, and everyone knows the cost has gone down and down and down. And the idea being we could just take all this data, they have their own, they license it from 23andMe, they license it from a bunch of others, and unleash AI on it and see if we can actually come up with new understandings of genes, because most genes we've sequenced but we have no idea what they do. We literally don't know if we turn off this gene what happens. So you could do that at a scale that wouldn't be possible with the human, because if you're taking millions of people's genomes that have millions and millions of different iterations, that very quickly becomes trillions of different data points, and if you're just going through that with a spreadsheet, so
too complex.
He's been talking about that a lot. I think that's one where we're still waiting. That was literally what Google was saying 10 years ago. And the time wasn't ripe. IBM were even talking about that. The time still wasn't ripe. I think maybe now they're kind of getting to grips with it. So he thinks we'll see something within the next 2 years, an actual new medical discovery based on machine learning going through the human genome. And it might be, something like if you turn off this gene, it can help with this disease or whatever. Yeah, it's wait and see on that one, I think.
Yeah. And again, that was a very interesting interview because this guy is in charge of R&D at one of the world's largest pharmaceutical companies, right? He's just you should know what he's talking about.
But do pharmaceutical company actually want to stop diseases, though?
Well, I mean, that's a hard discussion. They want to come up with temporary stops. It's as a service. It's healthcare as a service. No one wants to. Curing something is a one-off fee. It's much better to give something that a pill that you have to take for the rest of your life.
Gosh.
We also probably shouldn't mention that his expenses in last year on flights was £807,000.
How do you even find out about this?
Yeah, because his employees complained.
Oh no! Another interesting thing Barron said, it was a sort of call to arms to IT, because he essentially he came through the ranks of IT and had got to his job, and he's saying if you're an IT guy, do not be afraid of pharmacology and just generally kind of the medical sector. We need IT guys, we will train you in all of the pharma stuff very, very quickly, but we need we need technical guys, we need IT guys, we need programmers, we need developers. That was his spiel.
Okay, so he just basically pulled like a Steve Ballmer.
Developers.
Nobody will ever be good as Steve Ballmer. It's such a great loss because he's just and politics has changed, culture has changed. We will never have a CEO like that, and it's so sad.
So while we were off, there was quite a big historical moment in the kind of AI military scape, which was an AI pilot beat a human 5-0 in a DARPA dogfight. Obviously, a digital simulated dogfight. So the pilot who his name's not disclosed, but he's meant to be super experienced. He's wearing a VR headset. He's playing this game against these AI systems. So first up, I got all these different AI systems to fight each other, and the best one fought the human, and it beat him 5 times in a row, which is quite impressive. There are limitations, as in all things. Like one, we don't know if the fact that it was a simulation, the AI was able to use something in the simulation to win that wouldn't work in the real world. They're still kind of going through how it won. They also had to put limitations on the F-16s could only use front-facing cannons, and then we also like it's just the fact that because it's a simulation, it's obviously very stripped down, and like certain things like wind and weather and nighttime and all these things weren't really captured. But this is still a very huge deal. It's literally the US government doing a public demonstration of an AI beating a human fighter. What is interesting though, and I've spoken to DARPA, I've even spoken to the guy who's leading this program. Half the reason they're doing this isn't for us. It's not for you. It's not for me. It's not for the Chinese that would surely watching. It's for other people in the US government, because the US government's so huge and so slow at moving, and there's people in the military that don't take AI seriously. So they wanted those people to watch it. A lot of what DARPA does publicly is so that its bosses and its money men see it and go, "Oh, that's cool. We should do more of that."
Look at what the computer can do. All right, we'll order that. We'll order like the Reagan's Star Wars project.
Star Wars, yeah. So this is all part of DARPA's Air Combat Evolution, ACE, because you got to have a nice acronym. We are at the limit of what a human can do in a plane. Even if you build a better plane that can turn faster and sharper, a human will just pass out. The G-force would just immediately crush them, right? So if you want something to be able to fly, literally like a fly, if you watch a fly and how it just suddenly does right angles in the middle of that, human couldn't do that. So if we can put an AI in charge, that would be a huge deal for their flight.
I just gonna one little note. So like why I like the DARPA 5.0 sort of like dogfight story is because once again we had a quote from Lieutenant Colonel Dan Jaworczyk, who is a superhuman and a real Army, Navy, Air Force pilot, and just generally and knows his tech and is a guy worth following because he speaks the truth. It's not us saying that Air Force generally avoided automation like the plague. It is him. He is a very, very cool dude, and I look forward to kind of reading more of him.
Yeah, I mean, just a little plug. I interviewed him for about DARPA Gamebreaker, and still working on that. I'm trying to make a larger piece, but stay tuned.
I think when that piece is finished, we'll dedicate the entire episode on that, so you don't have to segue every episode into the military industrial complex story.
We've got it. I still will.
What am I gonna do with the last half an hour of your story? How am I gonna cut it down to 5?
Don't, just keep it. It's all perfect. It's beautiful. I'll declare war on you if you do.
So okay, so a little bit more about the Colonel Daniel Animal Jaworczyk. He was a test squadron commander, experimental test pilot, and several different stealth and combat fighter aircraft. Earned a bachelor's degree in aeronautical engineering from Purdue, a master's degree in flight test engineering from the Air University, a master's degree in science and technology intelligence from the National Intelligence University, a master's degree in air power strategy and technology integration from Air University, as well as a doctorate in nuclear astrophysics from Purdue.
Not much of a gamer though, Max. I have to disappoint you. We talked about that. I'm sorry.
Dude, this might be the perfect man.
Okay, so where can people find you guys online?
As always, it's arbusiness.com as well as on social media. I'm Max Smolax, Twitter Max Smolax, Instagram also Max Smolax, and email Max Smolax.
But don't email him; he won't reply. You can find me on Twitter at SebMoss. You can read my stuff all about datacenterdynamics.com, all the data center stuff. I've also spent a lot of time while Tien was giving birth in caves. So hopefully some more cave stuff coming. Or I'll just hide in the caves when everything goes bad.
By the way, did you just sneak in like a DCD shout out?
Yeah,
you just
gotta get that plug in there.
I think that's our first DCD shout out, like at the end.
Every click, Just
I love how you skip DCD. You say the real name, just thinking that you can just skip past me.
Well, because if you just Google DCD, it comes up with a developmental coordination disorder. So I have to go for the full name.
Yeah. And for me, if you wanted to see a cute baby photo, actually I haven't posted any. I'm only gonna I'm doing a challenge where I'm only posting like baby photo without face. Just like, it's nobody's business. I don't want my kid who's born in 2020 to be a data point. Like, how come there's like a million photos of me on the internet, and and people already know, the corporation already know what I buy and what I don't like, and that's just crazy.
Tien, if people want to send you baby advice, where should they send it?
I'm at Tien Fu on Instagram. Also on Twitter. I haven't used it in a while. Actually, I never use it.
Come back. We'll doom scroll together.